Undaunted 2200 Callisto is the new game in the Undaunted system. If you watch my videos, you may know this is one of my favorite game systems of the last couple of years and one of my favorite wargaming systems of all time because it combines the modern take, the modern mechanic of deck building with wargaming in a way that is very elegant, tactical, deep. It is also solo friendly because of the unpredictability of the hands of cards, and that is how I played the scenarios of this set solo. However, I play them solo two-handed. It's pretty simple. I take the deck of cards and I draw the first card from each deck, and I use the number of the card that I randomly drawn for initiative. That's something that if you were playing against a human opponent, you have your hand of 4 cards, you choose one for initiative, highest wins and goes first. If there is a tie, the person with initiative retains it. I just do it randomly, and so after I do that, then the side that goes first gets a hand of 3 cards, they play them. The other side gets a hand of 3 cards, they play them. And I repeat. And that's how I play Undaunted two-handed. However, if you want to play it in a proper, legitimate solo version, there's also this nice, hefty rule book and scenario book that lets you do so. So that's your choice. The option is definitely there. So we have 2 warring parties here, and they have infantry units representing single fighters, and you have the identification Stalker Z, Merc Z, Stalker Y, for example. They have an intrinsic defense value. They have 2 states which can be ready or suppressed. If you're suppressed, then your next action will simply the next action for this unit will simply unsuppress it and make it ready until somebody suppresses it again. That's the way it goes. But then we also have the mechas, and that's very interesting to me. Each mecha is represented by one of these cardboard standees, and they come, usually most of them, with a crew of 5 cards. A commander that can do, among other things, bolster cards, which is to acquire more cards for that unit, and then 2 gunners and 2 navigators. Again, different, some mechas are not like that, but most are. And that's pretty neat, because we got the mechas. They're also a little or considerably tougher to take down, so not everybody can attack them in a way that is effective. You have 8 scenarios, and each scenario comes with its own map, and that's why you have 4 double-sided board. I just took one out to show you. You have an interesting terrain feature here, which is elevation. And there are indeed some sections of the board. They have this like dotted line next to the edges, and they are at a higher elevation than the ones that don't have it. So you have 2 levels here. You even have bridges. Say, for example, this space here contains 2 different elevations. So from here you can go here and there walking along that bridge, but you cannot jump up and down because that would be weird and your mecha would take too much damage. And other things such as terrain features and things like that. Intrinsic defense of the terrain and things like that. Intrinsic defense and the scouting element. This is a key element in Undaunted games, which is units can use the move action only to enter areas that already have a scouting marker or that have a control marker, because you need to have scouted something before you can control it. There you go. And so to move into areas that don't have either of those markers, you need to spend the scout action. So let's look for a scout who can do that. Other characters also have it. Okay, the survey tech was here, moves there, places a scout marker if they're using the scout action. There is a penalty. Moving out can be a bit confusing, so each time that you scout a new area, you get an interference card in your discard pile, and so when you reshuffle it to make your new deck, because this is the deck building, so you know the general idea, then it'll be in your hand. It doesn't do anything, it just clogs your hand, it's annoying, and if you use it for initiative, then it's worth only a 1. So you're gonna have a supply of cards from which you will prepare the initial deck following the scenario instructions. You probably have a supervisor, maybe you'll have some squad leaders and some units from some cards from various types, and also some interference. And so the general idea is this: if you're playing against a human opponent, again, hand of 4, both select initiative, bid for initiative, and decide who goes. In my version, that's just the way it is. And then simply you're going to use the actions of the cards that you have. So you play a card and you perform one of the available actions with that character. So here with Ripper C, who is right there, hello, Ripper C. I could move Ripper C by 1, and I could do that because the area is scouted. I could take control of an area if I'm in an area that has been scouted and not controlled. I could attack by 1, sorry, with 1 die at any distance potentially, or and I could attack only infantry units though, or I could attack a armor vehicle, a mecha. See that like double edge there? That indicates that can attack a mecha, but there's a range restriction, so only if I am in the same space. Attacking takes elevation into account, and that's why we have 3 pools of dice. So if I'm attacking, suppose that the Reaper unit is attacking the Stalker here. So we are gonna check we're gonna check the defense, and the defense will be the intrinsic defense of the target. In this case, I start with a 6. See if there is a terrain bonus in there. There isn't. Add the distance bonus in defense. The further the target, the harder it is to hit them. And you get basically a +1 in defense for each distance, each space that the opponent is shooting at. And so, for example, he has a distance of 1, so the defense would be 7. If we were here, then we would have a defense of 8, because the range is 2. Then, the kind of die that we use depends on the situation based on elevation. If you're shooting at the same elevation as it is right now, then you use the D10. If you're shooting going up, like in that case, from here to higher elevation, then you use the D8. And if you're shooting from high up down, shooting down, then you use a D12. You use a number of dice equal to the strength of the attack, is indicated on the card. Very often it will be a 1. It will be a 1. And you roll. And if you roll equal to or higher than the defense of the target, then you score a hit. That is probably a miss. Oh, but no, look at me. I actually rolled a 10. You saw that. And so, boom, that happens to be a hit. When you score a hit, you remove a card of the corresponding unit from wherever it is. The hand of the opponent, or the discard pile, or their deck. If they don't have any, then the unit is eliminated and you remove the token instead, and they cannot come back. Also, when you eliminate a card from a unit, it is out of the game. It doesn't go back in the supply, so you cannot have like an infinite loop, mercifully, in which you just keep hitting and then bringing back units. So the idea is pretty simple. By now, most of you watching this video probably know the Undaunted system and have the general idea. And so here is Undaunted in a science fiction context with bridges, elevation, and mechas. The scenarios, they will have different victory conditions, eliminating enemy units and scoring points by taking control of key objectives are usually good things. You may also have other scenarios in which, for example, you need to exit units from the board or preserve or rescue civilians. But so, each scenario will tell you what you need to do to win. This is another very solid, very fun set in the Undaunted system. I don't know that I would ever get tired of this. Just, give me more variants and each give me a new theme, new art, new cards, and one or two tweaks here and there to make it feel fresh, and boom, I'll be there. Fantasy maybe next. Can that be contemplated? I like that. I like this one. I like science fiction and I like the Undaunted system. So something really wrong would have needed to happen for me for not liking this game. You got scenarios, you got variety, you got excellent components, and most importantly, you have very solid gameplay. And I like the gameplay of Undaunted very much. No change, no difference here, because I like the different choices that you have. When you get your commanders, you probably early on you want to beef up your deck because that also makes your units more solid, harder to take down. Cards equal life points here. But then there's a moment I could send a scout out now. I don't have a ton. There are many cards in there, so it's a fragile unit, but I really need to take control of that because otherwise they're coming from that direction, or they're taking control of an elevation before I can get there. The elevation system is another small tweak here that I hadn't seen before, or if some of the older games I don't remember it, but it works very well precisely because it gives value to different areas of the board, and to that then you also have specific objectives, specific elements of the board. Different scenarios will use different areas in different ways with lasers and traps and things like that. It feels very tactical, it feels very subtle, it feels satisfying while remaining a deck building game in terms of complexity. It works also very well for me when I play two-handed solo because I really don't remember exactly how many scout cards I have here and how many other stalker cards I have on this other side. I get a sense, and I could just look at the supply, but it's more fun that way. And of course, if I was playing against a human opponent, then I wouldn't remember exactly how many they have, and I would not want to count how many cards they have, because where would be the fun in that? So you have very simple mechanics. So when you draw your hand of cards, you have a range of things to do, which is satisfying enough. You don't feel like you have no choice. Drawing 3 interference cards is really rare. So you usually have 2-3 units that you can activate, and with each of those you can do a number of possible things. So you have just to me the right range of options here to make the game interesting without feeling overwhelming, without feeling too confusing. The action does feel cinematic, and call me old school, but I do like me a good old mecha that is there and blast things, and I imagine him walking slowly and doing the good stuff. Are we gonna have a xenomorph expansion? I think I like that. I think I like to see some of these mechas going against the xenomorphs. That tells you how old school I am. But Undaunted 2200 Callisto. If you like the game system, you're not gonna be disappointed by this implementation because it is very faithful to the general idea of Undaunted. Adds a couple of new ideas, a couple of twists, and most importantly, it adds a really fun science fiction background. And so I'm very pleased and happy with this new chapter in the Undaunted saga.